Today we're making a tie front crochet mesh vest. I will be making it in extra small, but I will also have instructions on how to change the size. And for extra notes and tips, you can find the free written pattern at vivcrochets.com or linked in the description below. And if you find this tutorial helpful, please leave a like or comment to let me know. Thanks so much, and let's get started. For this project, I'm making an extra small, so I'll be using 210 grams of medium weight yarn. And this one is called Soft and Simple, and it's 100% viscose, and it recommends a 5mm hook, which is what I'll be using. And I'll also need some scissors, a yarn needle, and a couple stitch markers. And if you don't have stitch markers, you can use bobby pins or safety pins instead. First, we're going to make a slip knot. And to make a slip knot, place the yarn over your hand with the tail end at the bottom. Then with your left thumb, hold the yarn and make sure there's at least about 10 centimeters of yarn. Then grab the top, wrap it around 2 fingers to form an X, and hold it with your pinky. Then with your hook, go under one side of the X, over and grab the other side and pull it through. Remove your fingers and tighten the knot. Now we're going to chain. And to chain, yarn over and pull through. Again, yarn over, pull through. And we're going to keep chaining until we can wrap the chain around the widest part of our body. So I'll chain until it can wrap around my bust. And make sure the number of chains you do is a multiple of 8. So I did 128 chains, and then we're going to chain 4 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to double crochet in the 6th chain from the hook. So there's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the 6th chain from the hook. And to double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the 6th chain from the hook. So go through this V and also go under the back loop too. And then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So these chains here that we left counts as the first stitch and first chain 1 space. So this is a double crochet, chain 1, and this is our second double crochet. And then we're going to continue that pattern. So chain 1, skip the next chain, then in the next, do your double crochet. So again, yarn over, insert your hook into that V and under the back loop too, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we go under the back loop too so that it doesn't curl. So if we do in the back loop 2, it's going to stay flat. So to continue this pattern, we'll chain 1, skip the next chain, and double crochet in the next. And we'll repeat all the way to the end. And you should end with a double crochet in the very last chain. So there's row 1. And to start every new row, we're going to chain 3. Then turn. And this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet and chain 1. So that's the double crochet and chain 1 on top of this stitch. So we can do our next double crochet into the 2nd stitch. So on top of this double crochet here, we're going to go under the V at the top of that stitch. So in from the side, under the V, and do our double crochet. Then we're going to repeat that same pattern, chain 1, and double crochet in this next stitch. Again, in from the side, under the V, and double crochet. Chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, and repeat that across. The last stitch of this row is actually going to be the chains we skipped in row 1. So we're going to chain 1 and double crochet in the second chain from the top. So if you rotate the chain to view it from the front, you can see the V's and we'll count down from the top. So this is the first chain, then this is the second, and we'll do double crochet in this chain. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook into that chain, and we're going to go under the loop in the back as well. So under 2 loops, and that'll keep the hole here small. Then we'll complete our double crochet. So that's how we're going to end the row. And row 2 is done, and now we're going to repeat that row. So again, we're going to chain 3 and turn. And again, this counts as a double crochet and chain 1 on top of the first stitch. So we'll move on to the next and do a double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1 and double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1, double crochet in the next, and we'll repeat that all the way across. And again, at the end of the row, after our double crochet into the last stitch, we're going to chain 1 and double crochet into the second chain from the top. We're going to rotate this so we can see the front of the chains and count down from the top. So that's the first, and that's the second, and do double crochet into that chain, going under the back loop as well. So that was row 3, and it was just a repeat of row 2. And again, that's chain 3 and turn, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, all the way across the middle. Then double crochet into this last stitch, chain 1 and double crochet in the second chain from the top. And we're going to repeat that row over and over until we reach where we want the bottom of the armholes to be. So I've done 20 rows and it measures about 21.5 centimeters. And now we're going to split the front panels from the back panel. So your rectangle will be folded like that, and these 2 flaps will be the front panel and the back will be in the back, and we'll have armholes here and here. So I've already marked mine, and if you did the same number of chains I did, 128 plus 4, then you're going to have 16 squares and then mark this stitch. So I have 16 squares from the end to my stitch marker, and then I have 32 squares in between, and I have 16 squares on this end as well. And if you did a different number of chains, then take the number of chains you did before the extra 4 at the end. So again, mine was 128, and divide that by 8. And that'll give you the number of squares before your first stitch marker. And that'll be for the other end as well. This end and this end. So when you fold your rectangle at the stitch markers, the front pieces should match up with the back piece. And now we can start the front panel where we left off at the end of row 20. So we're going to work back and forth just in this section. So there's going to be a hole here for the arm. So to start the first row of the front panel, we're going to chain 2 and turn. And then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. So instead of a chain 3, we did a chain 2, and that's so we can start decreasing like this. So this stitch on the end doesn't count as a stitch anymore, we've removed it. And every row we're going to remove 1 stitch off the end. Then we'll chain 1, and we'll double crochet in the next stitch. And we're just repeating the mesh stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch. And we're going to repeat that mesh stitch and stop 3 stitches before the stitch marker. So this stitch has my stitch marker, and I have 2 stitches before it. And in these 2 stitches before the stitch marker, we're going to do a decrease, or a double crochet 2 together. So first, we're going to chain 1 after our last stitch. And then to do a decrease, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into this next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Then we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we should have 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So this is what row 1 of the front panel looks like. We have that chain 2 at the end to form that decrease, and then we have a decrease at the end to also form the decrease. And we're going to repeat this row a couple more times. So again, chain 2, and turn. Then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. So now we have our decrease at the start of the row, and we can do our regular mesh stitch. So chain 1 and double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the next. And we're going to repeat that until we have 2 stitches left at the end of the row. So remember, this chain 2 at the very end does not count as a stitch anymore. So these are our last 2 stitches. And we're going to do our decrease again. So remember to chain 1 before your decrease. And then we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And that's our decrease at the end of the row. So now we're slowly decreasing the ends, and this side with the rest of our rectangle here is our armhole, and this part is that V at the front of the vest. And we're going to repeat this row until the armhole part has gone in enough. And this is half the width of our armhole because we'll repeat it on the back panel. So I've just done 4 rows for the front panel. So I'm going to stop decreasing on this side with the rest of the rectangle, but I'm going to continue decreasing on this side. So again, this is the front of the vest, and the front of the vest will continue decreasing all the way until the top, but this side will stay straight. So to start the next row, since we're starting the row on the side we're still decreasing, we're going to chain 2. And then turn. And double crochet in the next stitch. So we're still decreasing on this end. And then we're going to do our mesh stitch across. So chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch. And since we're not decreasing on this end anymore, we're just going to do the mesh stitch all the way until the end. so no decrease at the end. And our final stitch will go in here. So this is my row 5. And since we're going to start the next row on the end that we're not decreasing, instead of chain 2, we're going to chain 3. Then turn. And double crochet in the next stitch. So now our chain 3 counts as a double crochet and chain 1. So make sure you don't miss this stitch here at the end. And we're going to do our mesh stitch across and stop at the last 2 stitches. So we have our last 2 stitches. We'll chain 1 and do a decrease because this is the end with the decreases. So that's my row 6. And we're going to repeat our last 2 rows. So we're going to chain 2 because this is the end we're decreasing on. Turn. Double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1. Double crochet. Chain 1, double crochet. And remember, this is our chain 3, not chain 2. So we're going to chain 1 and double crochet in the second chain from the top. Just like we're ending a regular row. So you can see this side is still straight, but this side is still decreasing. And we're going to chain 3 because we're on the side without decreases. Turn, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and since we're on the side with decreases, we're going to decrease. You just need to remember that to do a decrease at the start of a row, you chain 2, and to do a decrease at the end of a row, you do a decrease over the 2 double crochets at the end. And once this last row is too short to keep decreasing, we're going to stop decreasing. We're just going to go straight up until we get the length of the vest we want. And again, to do a row without decreases, chain 3 and turn. Double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the second chain from the top. Then again, to add another row, chain 3, turn, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the second chain from the top. And we're going to continue adding rows without decreases until the armhole is big enough and the vest is long enough. So the top of this last row will sit on top of our shoulder and the rest of the vest will hang down. This is the bottom of the armhole. And this will be the bottom of the vest. So you can measure it on yourself to see how long you need it to be. So I did 6 rows of no decreases. So this length from the top and then down to the bottom of the armhole, that's the length your arm will fit in. And now we're done with the front panel and we're going to fasten off. So to fasten off, chain 1, And we're going to cut our yarn, but we're going to leave it long enough so we can sew the top of this front panel to the back panel. So we need about twice the width, plus a little extra for a tail end. Then pull through with your hook and tighten the knot. Now we're going to do our second front panel. And we're going to attach our yarn to the stitch to the left of the stitch marker. And to attach our yarn, we're going to make another slip knot. So place the yarn over your hand with the tail end at the bottom. Hold it with your thumb. Wrap it around 2 fingers to form an X. Go under one side of the X, over, grab the other side, and pull it through. Remove your fingers and tighten the knot. But don't tighten this part. We're going to put our finger in here, take the hook out, and insert our hook into that stitch we're going to attach the yarn to. So insert your hook into the top of that stitch. Then place the slip knot back on your hook and tighten it. And pull this loop through the stitch. Now we can repeat this front panel, but we're going to mirror it. Because instead of starting on the side with the front of the panel, we're starting at the side with the armhole. And like my first front panel, I'm going to do decreases on both sides for 4 rows. And again, to decrease at the start of a row, chain 2 and double crochet in the next stitch. Then do your mesh stitch in the middle. Now we're at our last 2 stitches and we're going to do a decrease. And our last leg of the decrease goes into the second chain from the top of this chain 3. So that's our decreases on both sides. So again, we're doing the exact same thing here except mirrored. So we're going to do our 4 rows with decreases on both sides, then our 4 rows with just a decrease on the front, and that's the side with no rectangle over here. Then finally 6 rows with no decreases. So if you did different rows than I did, then just make sure that you do the same. And if you fold the other side over, then they should line up. So we're going to fasten off the same way. We're going to chain 1, and then we'll get 2 times this width, plus a little extra for the tail, and cut our yarn. Then pull through with our hook and tighten the knot. Now we can work on the back panel, which goes in between the 2 stitch markers. Before we start the back panel, we need to make sure that we're facing the right way. So if you look at the last row in the middle and you can see the V's across the top, that means you need to flip it over. And you can see how on this side we can't see the V's. So that means these are the backs of the double crochets. And we always turn, so it's front, then back, and now we need front. Now we're going to attach our yarn to the stitch to the left of this stitch marker. So we'll grab our yarn and make a slip knot. But don't tighten it, we're going to take it off of our hook. And insert your hook into the stitch to the left of the stitch marker. Then put the slip knot back on your hook and tighten it. And pull the loop through the stitch. Now we can start the first row of the back panel. And for the back panel, we're working back and forth with decreases on either side, but just for the number of decrease rows we did here. And that's the armhole decreases. So remember, I did 4 rows of decreases on the armhole side, and then I stopped doing the decreases on this side. So now I have to do 4 rows of decreases here. And that'll make it like this. So we're going to mirror this slant by decreasing the same number of rows here. And we're going to have to do decreases here too, so we're going to have 4 rows with decreases on either end. If you did a different number of rows of armhole decreases, then do that number of rows instead. And remember, every time we start a new row, chain 2, and then double crochet in the next stitch to decrease. And then we'll work the mesh stitch across. And we're going to stop 2 stitches before the stitch marker. And remember to chain 1, and we're going to do a decrease. So there's our first row of the back panel, and we don't need our stitch markers anymore, so we can take those out. And now we're going to repeat that row for however many rows you did the decreases on the armhole. So again, mine was just 4. So I'm going to chain 2 and turn, and do the mesh stitch across and decrease at the end. So I've done my 4 rows with decreases on either side, and now I'm going to stop doing my decreases because it should line up now. Since I did a total of 14 rows for my front panels, I need to do a total of 14 rows for my back panel. And since I already did 4, I just need 10 more rows with no decreases. So again, that's chain 3 and turn, and we'll do the mesh stitch across and chain 3, turn, and go back across, and make sure that when you reach this chain 3, you do a double crochet into the second chain from the top. So I finished my 14 rows, and now we can fasten off. So again, chain 1, but this time we can just cut off a tail end. So once we finished our back panel, we can fold them together and start sewing. And we're going to use these 2 loose ends to sew the tops of the shoulders together. So since my loose ends are on the left side, I'm going to flip it over. And we can work right to left. So let's take this loose end and thread it into our yarn needle. And we should have our loose end connected here. And we're going to go into the stitch all the way on the right of the back panel. So this is our chain 3, and we're going to go to the second chain down. So 1, 2, and we're going to go into this chain, and we're going to go under the V. So we have the back bump under the yarn needle, and then the V on top of the yarn needle. And we'll pull the yarn through. And that'll give you a pretty straight line. And then we're going to go into the first stitch on here. So go down through that stitch, and then into that same space. So under that same second chain, and pull the yarn through. And then we have the chain space. So we're going to go under the V on this chain space, and then over and under the V on the chain space here. And then pull the yarn through. Next we have a double crochet, and we'll go into that stitch, then into this stitch, and pull the yarn through. Then another chain space, under the V of that chain, then under the V of this chain. Then we have a double crochet, then we have a chain space, And finally, we have our last double crochet. So again, this side is going to be the second chain down. We've already went through the first chain. Now we'll go through the second. And then into this stitch. Now it's connected like that, and we can tie a knot so it doesn't come loose. To tie a knot, we can go into any loop around here. So I'm just going to go under this loop and pull the yarn partway through. And we still have this loop here, and we'll go into this loop with our yarn needle and pull the yarn through and tighten the knot. Then we can repeat that one more time. And we can leave this to weave in later. Then we can go over to the other side and sew these together. This time we have to count how many stitches we need to go over on the back panel. So we know we have 1 stitch here on the end, and then 2, 3, and 4. So we need to count 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is the first stitch. So like we did on the other side, to get that straight edge, we need to go into this stitch first and connect the corner with that stitch, and then we can go back into the first stitch on the front panel, then into that same stitch. Then we can move on to the chain space, do the same thing. Then in the stitch, and repeat. And finally, we'll go into the second chain down of this chain 3 and into the final stitch on the back panel. And now it's connected, and since we have this loose end from the back panel, we can just tie these 2 loose ends together to secure them. Now our vest is connected at the top, and the next thing we need is the front tie to connect these points together when we put it on. To make our strap, we're going to attach our yarn the same way we did when we started a new panel. So we'll make a slip knot and take it off of our hook. Then we'll grab our vest, and we're going to find the first row with the decreases. So you can see it's straight all the way up until this point, and then it starts the decreases. This point here is where we're going to attach our yarn. So we're going to go into this triangular shaped space at the side of this decreased row, and we're going to go down through it, then put the slip knot back on our hook, then pull it through this space. And then we're going to chain 1 and tighten our chain. So make sure it's attached down here and not up here. And then we can start chaining the length of our strap. So for mine, I did 40 chains, and it measures about 22 centimeters. So you can sort of estimate how long you want it to be. So loop it like that, And this would be how big the loop is on one side and then how long the tail is. So you can adjust the length and make it as long or as short as you want. But once you're happy with the length, we can fasten off by just cutting off a short loose end. And then pull through with your hook and tighten the knot. So now the strap is attached and we can do the other side. So we'll do the same thing, make a slip knot, take it off our hook, and then we'll go to our vest, and on the other side, we'll look for the first decrease row, and it's this one, and we're going to go into this space and put our yarn back on our hook, pull it through the space, and chain 1. And again, make sure it's attached to the bottom of the space, not the top. So if you need to pull it down, and tighten your chain. And then we're going to chain 40 to make it identical to the other one. And once we have 40, we're going to cut our yarn and pull through with our hook. Now we have our 2 straps attached. So the last thing to do is to weave in our loose ends, but first make sure that it fits on you and then do any changes if you need to. So let's just grab this loose end at our strap and we're going to thread it into our yarn needle. Then we're going to weave it into our stitches. So let's rotate it. And we can go up this way under our stitches. So just weave it under any loops. So make sure you're going in the middle of the stitch. So when you turn it around, you don't see the yarn needle poking through. And then pull your yarn through. And then we can go over to the right and go down to another row. So let's weave our yarn needle under these loops until we get to the other row. Pull the yarn through. Now we're in a new row and we can go back the other way. So back this way and just go under the loops. Then pull the yarn through. And snip off the excess. Now that loose end is hidden, and we can do that for the rest of our loose ends. Then we can line up the ends of these straps together and then trim them so they're the same length. We're going to trim them just a couple centimeters. And our tie front mesh vest is finished. And that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and also leave any questions you might have in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.